And welcome to the stage, Ambassador Melanne Verveer.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm here to welcome you back to the second half of Own It. It's been a fabulous morning, I'm sure you all agree. Megan Smith is phenomenal, and we've got to get more of you involved in STEM because it's so critically important, and I'm sure she was an inspiration. And having the great Nora O'Donnell back here always is meaningful for us. And then Abby, you all know what she's achieved and is moving on to her next chapter. But this afternoon is going to be fabulous too. We have a terrific set of panels for you on redefining activism, and they're just about ready to take the stage. One on trailblazers, in which we'll have Kendall, who was one of the great forces behind the origination of Own It, pose as a moderator this time around with Jenna Arnold, and then Call Your Girlfriend. But I really want to salute the Own It team. I've known Helen from the beginning of this process, and I don't know how else to describe her than a force of nature. And she teamed up with Kendall early on, and they were the dynamic duo, and now we've got Alin and Soraya and a whole team of fabulous people to take the Own It enterprise forward. And I think that this program is a great testament to the extraordinary leadership of young women and all that you will be doing and continue to do long into the future. And I just want to say that I hope you'll all be involved in some way in advancing progress for women and girls, both here at home and around the world. I, not too long ago, co-wrote a book called Fast Forward. And my purpose in doing it is to help spark in everybody that great understanding that each of us has power. We have power as students, we have power in our jobs, even entry-level jobs, and we will certainly grow in significant power as decision makers of the future. But even today, to know your power, find your purpose. I hope it will be to fast forward progress for women and girls, but find your purpose and then connect with others. And there's no telling what you will be able to do, and we can grow the kind of progress that has taken so long over so many years, both here at home, and it's taking so much longer in so many other places around the world. And you can be a very big part of that. And I hope you will think about that as you listen to this panel that is shortly going to be able to come up here as they tell you what motivated them to do the exceptional things that they are doing today. You know, I often think about a young glove maker who went to the first Women's Equal Rights Convention in the United States. It was about 160 years ago. It took place in upstate New York in Seneca Falls, and her name was Charlotte Woodward. And I read her memoirs, and they have always stayed with me because she said when she decided to go to the first Women's Equal Rights Convention, like all of you decided to come to Own It, that she really was scared because she didn't know if anybody else would show up. And she said she persuaded herself she had to go, even though she was very fearful, because her life was quite miserable. And so was the life of so many young women and older women like her in the United States at that time. The meager wages that she earned as a glove maker, she couldn't keep. If her marriage was a total horrific failure, she couldn't get a divorce. She couldn't vote. She couldn't get the kind of education she wanted. In no way could she own it. And so she started out on that journey, not knowing what was going to happen. And she said, when night turned into morning and the sun came out, as far as she could see ahead of her, she saw a procession of people. Some great men who joined that procession, and we have those here today. And no progress for women comes without the good guys. But she saw so many in stagecoaches, on foot, journeying for equal rights, journeying for a better life. And I just want to say that we're all still on that road today. Some of us are much farther ahead. Some of us are pulling up the back. It's in this country and it's around the world. But I hope that you will take your place as you are here today and embark on that journey and make a difference as only you can make the difference. So enjoy the afternoon and know that you own it. Thank you all.
Please welcome to the stage Sarah Clements, Sarah McBride, Jessica Jin, Shannon Watts, and Jamia Wilson.
Let's talk Nigeria in a mass hysteria. Yeah, our souls were brought together so that we could love each other, brother. We are here.
Hi everyone, how are you? After lunch, doing good? Awesome. Thank you so much for coming back for the second half of the day. We're so excited to kick it off. Thanks to Ambassador Verveer. Now with our next panel, I'm so excited to introduce these amazing women. So my name is Sarah Clements. I am ONIT's co-director of logistics, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to our Redefining Activism panel. 3 years ago, after my family was personally and deeply impacted by gun violence, I began doing work in organizing and activism spaces, and I quickly learned just from my minimal experience that a massive amount of advocates in many issue areas, from gun reform to racial justice, labor union activism to LGBT rights, are women or female identifying. I also learned that historically, those of us on the outside of a movement often see only the typically men spokespeople of these movements and not the women literally running the show behind the scenes. I'm so excited to hear from these women who all have had different journeys to becoming leading activists in their areas, whether professionally or as kind of a side hustle. They're redefining what activism looks like, is, sounds like, and functions as in 2016. So without further ado, our activism panel will be led by Jamia Wilson, who is Executive Director of Women, Action, and the Media. Jamia is currently working on a book about Beyonce and feminism. Very exciting. She will be joined by Sarah McBride. Sarah is the Campaigns and Communications Manager for LGBT Progress at the Center for American Progress. While at American University, she made national headlines after coming out as transgender while serving as the student government president. Jessica Jin is a recent graduate of UT Austin and is the organizer of the campaign Cocks Not Glocks to fight campus carry. And finally, we have Shannon Watts. Shannon is the founder of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, which is part of Everytown for Gun Safety, the largest gun violence prevention organization in the country. So please give a round of applause for these amazing women.
Thank you so much for having us, and I'm going to share that a round of applause with Sarah also, and gracious for her amazing work in activism. How are y'all feeling? Feeling good? I feel really excited to be on stage with such brave and courageous women today. I mean, that's something that I see in all the women around me, but these women are especially brave and courageous, and just came from breakout session where we were talking about Beyonce and getting information, so this is a natural extension to that conversation. So I want each of you to just start off by telling us what you stand for and why.
Sure. So I was a corporate career woman for about 15 years. I have 5 kids. I decided to stay home about 5 years when Sandy Hook happened, which changed my life, a complete 180. And I had never been politically active in any way, except to vote. And I knew nothing about our nation's gun laws, nothing about my state's gun laws. But I knew that our country was broken. When 26-year-olds can be slaughtered in the sanctity of an elementary school, I knew that I had to stand for something, and that was fixing this problem in America. I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't know how to do it. I knew how to start a Facebook page. I was not a social media phenom. I had 75 personal Facebook friends at the time. But that quickly changed, and what happened was that thousands and thousands of other people had the same idea, especially women and mothers, that we're only 19% of Congress, that we're only 25% of state lawmakers, but we were the majority of the last voting electorate, and we make 80% of the spending decisions for our families. So if we could pull those levers, we knew we could make change. So we stand for empowering women and empowering moms to have a seat at the table when it comes to making policies that impact our families and our communities. And 91 Americans are shot and killed in this country every day. Over 33,000 Americans lose their lives to gun violence. That's something that women and mothers should have a role in stopping.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica. I recently graduated from UT Austin, where they recently passed a campus carry bill which will enable students to carry guns to class starting next school year. Originally, I didn't have that strong of an opinion about it. I just thought, well, that's a nuisance. That's just slightly annoying. It's also a waste of everybody's time on campus when they're doing groundbreaking research to cure diseases and build robots and fix the future. They're arguing about having guns in backpacks. How dumb. And so I never really spoke up about it. I knew it was a complicated issue. I didn't want to get into it because it's not a fun thing to deal with either. So I was just stuck in Austin traffic one day, listening to the radio, and there were pundits on the radio talking about the recent shooting back in October in Oregon that took 9-10 lives. And that day, a student in Houston had also died at school via gunshot. And the people on the radio were just saying, there's just nothing we can do about it. This is just going to be a problem forever. There's no solution. And I just rolled my eyes and I was like, what a bunch of dildos. And I went home, I messaged my friends, and I was like, you know, starting next year, I bet even though you can carry a deadly weapon in your backpack, I bet you can't even openly brandish a dildo in class. Somebody would get mad about that, right? And we kind of, you know, laughed and joked back and forth, and I looked up the school rules, and sure enough, it's an obscenity. It's considered like a misdemeanor in the state of Texas and at University of Texas that like you cannot be distributing dildos, you can't pass them around. I was like, this is too good. So I created a Facebook event called Campus Dildo Carry. I said, you know, starting on the first day of school, some people will be having guns in their backpacks. The rest of us should have dildos on the outside of our backpacks. We should just make fun of them. And I invited, you know, a handful of friends, as many as Facebook would allow, which is 500. And then I went to bed, I just kind of giggled to myself. I was like, I've made a really immature joke. I like blindly swung, and the next morning, like it was raining dildos because thousands of people had joined the event. They had RSVP'd, my inbox was on fire, and I was like, what have I done? Suddenly, I am planning a dildo protest. Suddenly, I am a gun violence prevention activist, and it's been quite a roller coaster.
I hope somebody tweeted, suddenly it was raining dildos. Yeah. That has to be documented.
I literally don't know how I can follow that. My name is Sarah McBride. I am the Campaigns and Communications Manager at the Center for American Progress, where I work on trying to pass non-discrimination protections for LGBT people nationwide. As Sarah mentioned, during my sophomore year at American University, I was elected president of the student body. And at the same time, I was also struggling with who I am and whether or not to come out as transgender. In the end, though, through the advocacy and through the support that I had while serving as student body president, I decided that it was time for me to come out, to live my life authentically. I came out to my parents on Christmas Day in 2011. There's really not much to do after you open presents. And I came out to my friends and family during the following months. And at the end of my term, I decided that I wanted to come out more publicly, and I wrote an op-ed in the AU student newspaper explaining that I was really Sarah and that I would begin living as my true self. And that was the hardest thing that I had ever done up until that point. But for me, it was still relatively easy compared to most LGBT people across the country. The fact that I could keep my family, that shouldn't have been a privilege. The fact that I could stay in school, that shouldn't be a privilege. And so for me, I was determined to help make sure that the privileges that I had in that coming out process could be a reality for everyone. And so I worked in Delaware to help pass protections for transgender people in my home state. I do that work now nationally, but not to get super deep or super depressing at the start. I actually really come to this work not actually as someone who is transgender, more so as someone who's loved someone who's transgender. I met my husband, Andy, 3 years ago. Andy came out as a transgender man when he was in college. He was a couple years older than me. And we met fighting for trans equality, and we fell in love. Shortly after we started dating, Andy was diagnosed with cancer. And while he initially got a clean bill of health, his cancer returned, and it had spread. And we found out that the situation was terminal. Andy and I married in August of 2014, and then 4 days after we got married, he passed away. And for me, that experience, that relationship with Andy, demonstrated that every day matters. I know there are other people on the stage who understand that, but he was someone who had the courage to come out and live as his authentic self at a young age. He was supposed to have 3/4 of his life as his authentic self, but because of those circumstances, he had less than a quarter. And we know that a lot of people have even less time than that. And so for me in my work at the Center for American Progress, my goal is to make sure that every day people can live their life to the fullest, and that regardless of how much time we have here, we can all live healthy and complete lives. So it's really wonderful to be here, and I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you.
So each of you has endured challenges to get here, but you've taken those challenges and turned them into opportunities, or you've looked at those problems and turned them into solutions and pushed for those solutions by using your people power. Can you speak to how you do that, and how, when you see something that seems like it's implacable, immovable wall, how do you create a possibility or a future from that?
Well, for our organization, everyone said, don't even take on the NRA. Don't bother to take on the gun lobby. They're invincible. And we didn't believe that. I mean, you look at other lobbies that have been brought down or at least pulled back in this country. We knew it could happen. We thought immediately that fighting this unbelievable emotional power of a vocal minority who are afraid their guns are going to be taken away, with this other opposing emotional force of women who were afraid their children were going to be taken away, would be the most powerful way to go at this. And what was interesting to me, open carry is a thing in this country. If you've been to other states, you know that you can open carry in 45 states in this country. You can take an AR-15 into your local Kroger when you check out, and it's completely legal. And so when we started having marches and rallies to exercise our First Amendment rights, we were often surrounded by men who were trying to use the Second Amendment to intimidate and to silence us. So we're with our kids and our diaper bags and all this paraphernalia that goes along with being a parent, and we would be surrounded by men open carrying. And I really thought, wow, we're going to lose members because you don't often, when you're an activist, face armed opposition. But what it really has done is to embolden our members and to say, for many of us, Sandy Hook was the straw that broke the camel's back. But to say, if we lose our children, we really have nothing left to lose. And so we are going to stand up, and we are going to fight, and we won't be silent, and we won't be intimidated by these armed men. And in fact, our moms had a meeting recently at a public library in Kentucky where open carry is perfectly legal. You can open carry inside the library. And 12 men walked in and sat in the front row while our moms were just trying to give a membership presentation. And our moms are such badasses that they put pins on all of them and said, well, if you're going to be here, you're going to learn about gun sense, and took pictures with them. And you just refuse to sort of be cowed into silence. And I think that there's this idea that, sometimes that women can't take on this very macho, testosterone-driven gun lobby. And in fact, we can, and we are winning. Mm.
I'm super excited about a lot of this battle over carrying in the general public going down in the university setting, because everybody in the university is smart and they have brains, and they're here to improve the future. And they've picked the fight with the totally wrong crowd, you know? There's about nearly 2,000 professors at UT now who have said, this is gonna change the way we teach. This is gonna affect our learning environment. And we don't want to have to deal with this. This is a pain in our rears. It's wasting our time, and it's endangering everybody in the classrooms. I think that it's really easy to keep something as serious and scary and morbid as gun violence at an arm's distance. I'm totally guilty of it too, and I did it until I fell face first into this. But I think with the dildo protest, it's been exciting because I've lowered the threshold for participation. You don't have to have been confronted by losing a family member to gun violence or having had a bullet nearly whiz by your head to feel something about this, because if you want to have a load of fun in August, you have to take a position. And otherwise, you're just going to be left behind while everybody else is marching around having the time of their lives. So, yeah, this whole college thing is very exciting. I think all of you here have the power to make your voice heard and to stand up for something, and you don't have to have that strong of a connection to it to have an opinion about it. That's what I have to say about that.
I think in my work, one of the things that has been abundantly clear is that empathy is an incredibly powerful emotion, and that none of us can question, and I know this is cliche, but none of us can question the power of our own voice and our own stories. I think so much of us, I think in particular so many women, oftentimes think that they don't have something to contribute. Their voice isn't the right voice. Their voice isn't the qualified voice. You're not old enough to do something. But what I've seen is that when people step up and tell their stories, and it doesn't have to be the most depressing story, it doesn't have to be the story of the worst discrimination. If it's just a story of love, a story of friendship, a story of kindness, that people respond to that, and it changes people's minds. When my family and I were lobbying for gender identity protections in Delaware, we practically camped out at Legislative Hall, and we just went office by office by office. And it wasn't to talk about discrimination that I had faced. It wasn't to talk about trans identities as a concept. It was just to show them that there was a family that cared about this, that was going to be impacted by this. And that made a world of difference. It wasn't necessarily even about the words we were saying, but that we were saying them to them. And so I would just, God bless you. I would just always stress that never, ever, ever, ever doubt that your voice doesn't matter. Particularly on LGBT equality, we know that change trickles up, it doesn't trickle down. That change starts at the individual level, and as more and more people meet LGBT people, and as more and more allies stand up vocally, not just for gay people, but for trans people as well, that things start to change. And when you model that behavior, when you lift up your relationships with LGBT people, when you talk about your own experience, that changes hearts and minds, and it's going to improve people's lives. So I just say make sure that when you come up against the barriers, don't question that you're the wrong person to meet them or to address them.
Yes. And so you're talking about voice. So one of the things I heard from each of you is voice, and a lot of the work that we do at Women Action in the Media, where I work, is to make sure that free expression and voice is something that's extended to all of us. And unfortunately, online harassment and abuse has reached crisis levels, and women, trans people, people of color, gender nonconforming people are the people who are targeted the most, and people with disabilities, Islamic women, the list can go on. And I think that we would be remiss in having a conversation about activism in today's landscape. We're talking about redefining activism without talking about the fact that backlash is kind of a sign of progress these days, that when you're progressing, when you're pushing an agenda of change, that the backlash, which always existed, now comes to you instantly on lots of different channels. And so I wanted to ask you, in terms of voice, how do you manage people trying to silence your voice? How do you manage harassment and abuse? And do you have tips for others who would want to be activists but who feel like they're stymied by fear of that backlash?
Well, if backlash means you're successful, I am feeling very successful right now. We've hit it out of the park, because within 24 hours, I mean, the death threats started, the threats of sexual violence against me, against my family. I mean, honestly, there's an underbelly of America that I didn't know existed. And whether they exist in their mother's basements and they're tweeting me from there, I don't know, but sort of the feeling is the same, which is that you are being inundated by people who not only don't support you, but want you to go away and be quiet. And that was really shocking to me. I only got on Twitter because of Moms Demand Action. So at first, I took all this very seriously and was not devastated, but just like, wow, I never thought that about myself, or should I be afraid? And I think what I realized very quickly was that was just background noise meant to silence and to intimidate, and that they would be successful if that, in fact, was the outcome. And so I'm actually famous for blocking people, or infamous for blocking people on Twitter. At one point, I'm blocked by Shannon Watts, trended. Very proud of that. And I used that hashtag to share all of the horrific things that people had said to me on Twitter. So, it can be scary out there, but I think the data shows that it's particularly scary for women, and that if we are silent because of that, I feel strongly that we really let the other side win. And when you think about social media, yes, there's that dark side of it, but there's also this incredibly positive side. Like, I think about Mothers Against Drunk Driving from the 80s. I have no idea how they did what they did in 10 years. I mean, did they drive to each other's houses? Did they send letters? Like, I don't know how that even worked. But I do know that for us, things like hashtags like burritos not bullets, or groceries not guns, have resulted in companies like Starbucks and Chipotle and Target and Facebook changing their gun policies, because moms who have time when their kids are at school or at night to get on and do this hashtag activism, it actually works. We got Chipotle to change their gun policy over a weekend. And so social media is incredibly strong, an incredibly powerful way to advocate for change. But unfortunately, it does have this dark side, and I just suggest you block all of those people on Twitter. That's my solution.
When I brought the dildo out into the open in the campus environment, like the ground cracked open and all this shit just spewed out. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize there was so much misogyny and racism and all of these issues that I had just unearthed, and now I have to deal with this. Originally, it was very scary. I was like, this is just too much. People are after me, and all I did was bring out a pile of toys. Why are they so mad at me? And eventually, I learned to have fun with it. I realized that these people are seething in their basements about a pile of harmless toys that society has like unnecessarily criminalized in most states, like my home state of Texas, and that they're gonna get so angry about it, and they're the ones with like these deadly weapons, and I think it just proves my point that if they can't stay calm in the presence of a rubber dildo, how are they going to save the world with their gun in a time of crisis? So I've just been, I'm running with this and having so much fun and just leaving the haters behind, because what is more fun than a dildo march, Yeah.
This is a really interesting question because the phenomenon of a backlash has really been on my mind lately. In North Carolina, the state legislature passed and the governor signed a bill that rescinded LGBT non-discrimination protections and then went a step further and affirmatively banned transgender people from using restrooms in accordance with their gender identity in any kind of government facility. That includes schools. And we are seeing an increasing number of anti-LGBT bills, in particular anti-trans bills across the country. 200 anti-trans bills were introduced in legislatures across the country this session. And I've been thinking about that and that backlash, and it's very hard to see the forest for the trees when that's happening. But I've been trying to remind myself, I've been thinking of this one quote from Gandhi, actually, about first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And I hope that that's what's happening right now for the trans community. But what I'll say is, sort of to take a spin on not how do I handle or other folks handle the backlash and the negativity, and every time my name or a video of me or a picture of me appears in print, the comment section I can barely get through the day after I read that, and I know you're never supposed to read the comments, but I don't know. So what I'll say is that we should all be lifting each other up. Don't pass up an opportunity to compliment someone on the street, a friend, a coworker, about anything that comes to your mind. Because it might be the thing that they need to get them through the day. It might be the thing that they are just so concerned about or so insecure about that the haters are lifting up and emphasizing, and they might just need that pick-me-up. And so we all need to practice self-care. We all need to make sure we rationalize ourselves that these people are projecting their own insecurities and their own fears on us. But we also should be allies to one another in that and make sure that we are consistently projecting positivity in our everyday actions, even when we're not realizing, because that single moment that seems insignificant to us might be the big moment that makes a person be able to get through the day and continue the work.
Absolutely. And that's a perfect segue to the question that I had too, which was one of the questions I think about in activist movements a lot is, what do we do when we have different theories of change? So, we might all have a same defined goal. We might all say that we want equality, but have different tactics that we want to employ to get there. We're seeing a lot of this, I think, in election conversation in the media as well. And when you were talking about North Carolina, that one really hit me because my parents live there, and I was recently there, but I was really heartened by the fact that so many businesses were saying, we're going to pull out of North Carolina, and so many people I knew who are working on racial justice and other issues saw the intersectional connections and those implications and were marching at the governor's house the night that this was announced. And I thought this is exactly what we need to do, that we have these different movements that we're working with, but we need to stand for each other because standing for each other is standing for ourselves. Our liberation is inextricable from each other's liberation. And so I wanted to ask you, and whoever wants to answer this, what does it mean to stand for one another? And do you have a good example of a coalition that you've worked on or a partnership, something you've learned about solidarity, and how can we be better allies for each other?
It's like the $1 million question, I think, and I'll try to come up with a coherent answer as I talk. But I think your point is so well taken, and I think one of the things we tend to do, particularly in progressive spheres, is try to lift up our individual method of change and put down other people's methods of change, and question people's motives, question people's their effectiveness. But the reality is that we need every single pressure point. These forces are so strong. These prejudices are so strong that we need businesses to come out. We need people to be marching in the street, right? We need every single kind of action because only when people are inconvenienced will things change. Some people may be inconvenienced by economic ramifications. Some people may be inconvenienced because they get stuck in traffic because of a protest. But we need people to notice us. And so we need to make sure that as feminists, as progressives, if you are progressive, as activists, that we are respecting each other's work, even if it's not your method, even if it's not the way you think you contribute the best to a movement. We need to make sure we respect every single person. I think Black Lives Matter is probably the best example of an intersectional approach. They are standing up. They are engaging in the system and doing direct action. They understand that we need to hold our allies' feet to the fire just as much as we need to be protesting people who are actively working against us. And they are also doing it in a way that is consciously trying to lift up the voices of women of color and trans women of color. And that's something that we have not seen in the progressive movement before. And they understand that, as you said, the only way that we achieve equality for every person is to stamp out racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, classism, every kind of ism and phobia that exists.
I want y'all to know that there's no really certain qualification to take a stand up for something. I've always had entrepreneurial ambitions, and I always thought someday I would run my own thing, but I would always talk myself out of starting something. I'd come up with reasons A, B, C through Z about why I can't do it, or why it's too hard, or why it's not the right time. But now that I've I got the ball rolling on something, and it took me a while to catch up to it. Originally, I was apologizing for it. I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I did that by accident. And then I was asking for help. I was like, people like Shannon, I was like, what do I do? Can somebody else just take this? Because I don't know anything. And then suddenly I caught up to the ball, and I was like, okay, now I'm more familiar with it. I know what I started, and now I can actually, form it's a silly protest, but there's mature conversations to be had around it and very serious conversations. And I've given myself time and space to figure it out, and I've come out unscathed. I started something I didn't mean to, but now I've owned it. And I haven't, and the world hasn't ended. I haven't crashed and burned. And if I do fail, I don't really have an exit strategy. I can say I started this and I ruined it. But yeah, it's been fine. I've always been scared of starting something, and because I had to take ownership over something that I didn't mean to start, I've realized that it's way easier than you think it is.
Yes. And you haven't failed.
Yeah,
You've done really well.
I'm hoping that people will march in August. I mean, if they forget, then what am I going to do with the thousands of dildos I have?
Send me one and we'll do a solidarity march in New York. I got you. And so I think my last question before we go to questions from all of you, because I want to, I can't help as an activist not to try to create an organizing meeting out of this opportunity with all these people in the room talking with amazing activists. But I wanted to see if anyone here wanted to speak to the question of next generation activists. What advice would you have given your younger self, or if you're still living in your younger self, what advice do you wish you knew then that you know now that would have helped you?
Well, I have a younger self. You guys are your younger selves, so I'll speak to my younger self. I had a career for 15 years where I basically sold widgets and things and products. And in retrospect, the most gratification I've ever gotten in my entire life, other than my family, is from this work. So working with a purpose has completely changed not just the way I feel about myself, but the way I feel about the world. And I'm so incredibly grateful that this happened to me, because it feels like I've touched the divine. By working with other women constantly on something, it's all about finding your better self and helping other people. I work with survivors, people who've been impacted by gun violence, and it's been such a life-changing experience that my recommendation to my younger self and to other people's younger selves would be, do something that has purpose in it. You can still sell widgets and do different things like that, but if you can find something that really helps other people, it will change your life, and it will change your perspective about life. And I also think don't be afraid. We're all sort of accidental activists, and so we're all of you, about things that you're passionate and things that you care about. Don't let anyone tell you that you shouldn't have a voice and that you can't start and lead a movement, because I think we're all proof of that. I've never imagined that this would be my future and my path. And so when I'm speaking specifically about gun violence, and I think about people in the millennial generation, this idea that we are asking people to do lockdown drills, our children, as though these are acts of nature that are uncontrollable, but really they're acts of cowardice. And it is my generation's fault, and it is on us to start this process of fixing it, but it's on all of you to actually make it happen. And so I would also say get involved and repair the world.
That's beautiful. So just a time check, and we have time for one question. So does anyone have a question? Find your mic. It's right there. You do?
Yeah.
You have a question? Just project a little bit more then.
Hi, so my question is more directed for Sarah and Jessica. Myself and some of my friends are here. We started our first ever student advocacy group on our campus to raise against sexual violence and gender-based violence. And we had a lot of opposition from the upper people of our school that didn't really want us to do what we were doing or told us we were doing it the wrong way. So my question is, having been on college campuses and starting your activism on those, what did you do in situations where the school itself was trying to shut you down? Not the students, but the uppers.
If there's such thing as doing it the wrong way, I did it as wrong as it could possibly be. I made the worst, most immature joke that I could think of, and I didn't think anybody would see it. So I find that there's power in numbers. I mentioned, I was like, it is a misdemeanor in Texas to wave a dildo around. But if thousands of us are running around with dildos, can you imagine the cops chasing students all around campus? It's like, nothing's gonna happen to us. And honestly, it's just obnoxious that they would, punish something so harmless when they're encouraging something so dangerous.
That's a great question, and I think it sort of goes to something I talked about a little bit earlier. Right after I was elected student body president, but before I took office, or whatever is the term, there was a grant that the university was supposed to be applying for under VAWA, that the Women's Initiative, which is the gender equity advocacy entity within our student government, had worked with our Office of Campus Life on. And they'd been working on it for almost a year. Everything was ready to go. Everything was basically filled out except for one signature. The person who was supposed to sign it had been working with them all along, and then at the 11th hour decided that they were not going to do it. And we sat in their office, had a meeting with them. There was nothing that was going to come out of that. So we did a sit-in in the Campus Life office. And so I think, it goes to our earlier conversation of direct action. We shouldn't be afraid to take more radical approaches, particularly when it's been made clear that going through the system or meeting with folks or sort of this respectability politics won't work. So I urge you, if you are experiencing resistance from the administration, and it's clear that meeting with them and having sort of traditional dialogue won't move them, I would encourage you to do a sit-in or have a protest on campus, particularly a sit-in, because I think that's a really, really, really strong way to disrupt and to inconvenience the people that you're trying to influence. And I think that's probably the tactic that I would go with.
And thank you for saying that. I think that's actually the perfect way for us to end our panel and to say, I've got to say, to own it by owning your voice, owning the space, and taking ownership of our freedom. Thank you so much to our panelists, and thank you for the work that you do.
We are here for all of us. That's why we are here. Why we are here. We are here. No guns made in Harlem, but yet crime is a problem. He wanna shine, they wanna rob him. Single mother, where they come from. How we gonna save the nation with no support for education? Cause right now it don't make sense. Right now it don't make sense. Let's talk about our part. My heart touch your heart. Let's talk about living. Had enough of dying, not what we all about. Let's do more giving, do more forgiving. Yeah, our souls are brought together so that we could love each other. Sister, we are here. We are here for all of us. We are here for all of us. That's why we are here. Why we are here. We are here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Soraya Eid, Jenna Arnold, and Kendall Ciesmeyer.
Came to win, to survive, to prosper, to rise.
Hello, everybody. I have a little bit of bad news. Unfortunately, Mickey Agarwal has fallen quite ill and is in the hospital, so she cannot be with us here today. But we are sending her our best wishes, and we sincerely look forward to having her here with us next year. With that, I am so pleased to present this equally wonderful conversation between two trailblazers, Kendall Ciesmeyer and Jenna Arnold.
Kendall is one of the Own It co-founders and one of my biggest inspirations. She graduated from Georgetown in the spring and currently works for Nora O'Donnell at CBS This Morning. Jenna Arnold is one of the co-founders of Organize, which is looking to put itself out of business by solving the organ donation crisis. She was also the youngest American to work at the UN, has sold TV shows to MTV and Showtime, and started Press Play, a boutique content creation firm that finds cool ways to make people care about something other than their Instagram feeds. Please help me in welcoming Kendall and Jenna.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. How are we doing?
Woo!
How are we doing?
It is such an honor for me to sit here and interview Jenna Arnold, who is one of the co-founders of Organize. And one of the things that Organize, well, actually the only thing that Organize does is they're trying to create a centralized organ donation system so we can solve the problem of organ shortage in the country and essentially put her out of her job. And why this is so meaningful to me is that I've actually had 2 liver transplants. So without Jenna's amazing work, my life would be at stake. So I'm really just excited to talk to her about what she does. We're going to get in a little bit more into the organ donation work that she's been doing. But first, I want to talk about what she did before Organize, which is equally as interesting. So Jenna, you have had quite the career trajectory. You've done a variety of different things. As you heard in the introduction, she sold 3 shows to MTV and Showtime. She was the youngest American to work at the UN. She graduated and was a teacher for a little bit. How have you managed to do so many different kinds of things in your life so far? And how have you been able to trailblaze and create change in each of those areas?
Because I'm incredibly impatient, which I have a feeling that most of you in here can relate to. This idea of, oh, that looks cool, I kind of want to do that for a hot second or for 2 years, and I find my way to it. And it hasn't been easy to navigate, but it's kept me entertained, which I know that if I weren't challenged in doing something I cared about, I would not be doing a very good job at it, which is something that is slightly reflective of the conversations that I was having with some of the girls in office hours earlier today, which is very much like I have a big moment post-graduation or a year and a half before where I have to really try to define exactly what it is that I want to do. And there's opportunities to go to the banks and the consulting institutions, and then there's opportunities to go build homes in Dalit villages in rural India. And there's this deep-seated fear that that first choice is ultimately going to dictate the next 40, 50, 60 years of your life, and it won't. And if you take anything out of here, please just take a deep breath, knowing that you can jump ship from a relationship, from a city, from a job at any point that you want. I know it's easier said than done, and those big life decisions sometimes take months and months and months, if not years. I think it took me like a year to break up with a guy one time. But like they take a little while to actually be like, oh, yes, this is exactly what I'm doing. So I have had a very different kind of career, but it's because I get impatient and I get bored easily. And that's led me to say, hey, what's around that other corner, and let me go chase it. And I will say this too, that I didn't, and this is just me being human and being frightful at times, that I never completely jumped ship until I had everything sorted on that other side. So that was sort of the part of me that wasn't as much of a risk taker.
But we were talking backstage about all the different kinds of problems that you've solved or that you've gotten involved in. And you had a moment that you were telling me about, and I would love for you to share with the audience about that moment. But you're a serial change maker, a serial problem solver. What makes you look at a problem and believe that you can go solve it?
The question that you asked backstage was like, why you? Like, who do you think? She didn't say this, but this is what I heard. This is what I heard. who do you think you are, right? And I asked the same question to you and some of the listening to the panel up on the stage. Like, who do you think you are that you can actually be that one to change? And I feel like someone famous who I should be able to know said, well, who are you not to do that? Right? It's probably someone who's built on the stage. But it's the truth. I was 14 and I was in Mexico City with some other of my classmates, and we were sitting in a really horrible traffic jam in a van, and everyone was getting super restless. And as we approached what looked like a bottleneck, everyone was like, what's going on, what's going on? We got closer and realized that it was a gentleman who is on the shoulder of the road in a wheelchair, pumping very, very hard, and there weren't shoulders in Mexico, so this was an actual lane. And I was like, wait, and as we were zooming by, why can't he get up on that sidewalk? And I noticed that the sidewalks didn't have ramps like they do here in the US. And it was at that moment that I was like, oh my, that's an easy problem to solve. And it set me on this like path of there's problems that can be solved that can make people's lives better. And listen, I'm not trying to take on poverty, and I'm not trying to solve climate change, but I am very much focused on identifying problems that we can solve in a very laser-focused way. I happen to have landed in the organ donation community because it hasn't really been upgraded in the past 40, 50 years. So people keep high-fiving us saying, wow, you're really like gutting this entire system. And it's like, well, yeah, because no one's touched it for 50 years, so it's pretty easy to do. But unfortunately, that is the case for a lot of problems in this country. When we first started knocking on people's doors saying, hey, do you guys know that 23 people are dying a day? And it's not a medical challenge, it's a business and distribution issue. The technology doesn't exist to get people organs more quickly. They sort of looked at us and they were like, have you seen the student loan situation in the US? There's like 17 agencies that process a single student loan in this country. And so I think one of the challenges, which is I think hopeful for the people who are going into banking and who are going into the consultancy world, is that you'll learn some great strategies and techniques to figure out how you can potentially solve those problems, and you can tackle that problem in 5 or 10 or 15 years from now if you want. But I'm very much like there's no excuses to not do things. I think complacency is the cancer of humanity and prevents us from moving forward. And anyone who's complacent, I tend to judge.
All right. So you talk about solving problems and how this has been an active pursuit throughout your life, seeing a problem and going out and solving it. I think for a lot of people, they see problems in our daily lives, but they don't know how to even make a first step. Did you know how to make your first move when you're looking at organ donation? Did you have a certain idea in your mind, or did you just go, oh, that's not right, and I'm gonna figure it out?
It's a lot of I'm gonna figure it out. And there are, particularly when you're onto something, as Sarah said earlier, and I'm gonna misquote Gandhi, which is first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And there was a lot of ignoring in the beginning, and then there was a lot of laughing, and I am very, very much in that phase of there are a lot of people who really want me to go away, really, really, really want us to dissolve. And there's a lot of nights when I leave the office and I'm like, I could throw in the towel. I could throw in the towel today and be okay. And then I wake up the next morning and I'm like, oh wait, but 23 people died last night because of a broken system. And pull up my bootstraps and keep going. And I think there's probably a little bit more fight left for us to have, but I'm hoping in the next 3 to 6 months we'll end up winning. And what I mean by that, and it's actually a very specific call to action, and I'm hoping I can enlist all of you to be part of the movement, is all of you are, if you have chosen to be an organ donor, we're asked the question at the DMV, and can anyone else think of a worse point of sale to make an end-of-life wish? If you Google hell, Google image hell, the first image that pops up is the DMV. So the idea is we want to make it easier for people to register to become an organ donor. We had a 93-year-old woman register to become an organ donor at organize.org last week in 47 seconds. I have a feeling it would probably take you guys closer to 30. It's not a challenge, but maybe it is. It's also really important that your next of kin know your wish and what it is that you want to be. So if you post on social media using hashtag and the wait list, then we will make sure your next of kin get that information should something happen, and there can be 8 lives beyond your single life, and a life like Kendall's, and none of us would be here if she never received her liver. And it's a very solvable problem, and I think that's why people get so excited about it, is because it's something that we can check off our collective list of things to do, which is a relief, because I fear that my daughter's gonna have to carry some torches in the LGBT space when she comes of age. She's now 10 months. So there's things that we're gonna be like sharpening our elbows and dealing with for the rest of our lives, but there's some easy wins out there.
So you talked about how you've had adversaries, and I think that we've all been through that. You know, you're trying to do something and someone wants to stop you. How do you make sure that your self-worth, who you are as a person, how do you care for yourself? How do you make sure that you don't burn out, because, you know, if you burn out, then you're no help to anyone. Mm-hmm. You're not help to the problem because you're out of commission. How do you ensure that who you are, and how do you practice self-care? How do you make sure that you stay intact?
So a couple of thoughts on that. My biggest adversary is myself. Your biggest enemy is yourself. And if there is a second rule that you take out of here, is to please be kind and gentle to you, because you're not always going to have the answers. Being human means being confused 99% of the time. And just know that, and cut yourself some slack. And the days when I'm really like, I don't know what to do, right? There's always this ebb and flow of what do you want to do next, or in between projects. And I happen to be a person of sort of spiritual faith, where I have this great knowing from me that everything happens for a reason. And I get very frustrated in those years when I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm doing the right thing or if I'm doing enough. And my mom said to me one time, because I was complaining about that, she said, just go to bed and tuck yourself in like you would tuck in a baby. Like, make the sheets all nice and just put yourself to sleep. Because if you don't have the obvious yes or no, you're still in the research collecting phase. And you need to be gentle and take care of yourself. It's like sort of catching waves when you're boogie boarding or surfing. Like, sometimes you're just out there and sometimes you miss a wave. But like, when you're out there floating, waiting for the big wave, just rest and go with it. So that would probably be it. I'd like to say I meditate and I drink my kale juice and I work out, but that's all bullshit. I mean, I do, but I don't do it as well as I should. I'm still pounding away at the computer at 1:30 a.m. because I also know in 2 years from now I'm not going to be.
So you've had a lot of different transitions in your life, and you've managed to go from a passion to another problem. I think a lot of us have our day jobs, and we will have our day jobs, and then we'll have like a side hustle or a side passion. How do you manage that? How do you manage to have, okay, I might not be doing what I want now, but soon I will, or I could. How do you manage to?
My gut tells me every person in this room is quite good at micromanaging and, multitasking. That was total Freudian. So I think when I was in undergrad, my first couple of semesters, I took whatever the average class was, and then I studied abroad in my junior year, and none of my credits transferred. So I had to come home in my senior year. I think I had to do like 21 credits, and then like one semester, 24 credits, like a batty amount. Those 2 semesters is when I got my best grades. And my advisor said to me, oh yeah, of course, when you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. And that has been my policy. So even going into this year, which is going to be the biggest year of my professional career, we have huge wins with the White House that are coming out around organ donation at the end of this month. I'm about to probably transition out, frankly, and start looking for what my next big challenge is. I've decided to do a bunch of personal things too, right? More writing. I want to build out my family's Ancestry.com profile. I have to make my kids' photo album. And so I'm sort of like, as soon as I have like a little bit of a lag time is when I double down. And I know we're getting the big N sign, which there's no one that's more appreciative than I am on that front. But I do want to say one thing that I feel like might be lurking in the back of your minds. And if it's not lurking now, it will be lurking in 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 years from now when you decide to have kids. I have a 10-month-old at home and was very frightful of how I was going to be able to do it all. And I wish someone just said to me, you can. It's not that hard. And I don't want any of you to be like, think about the jobs that you're ultimately going to take now, thinking like, well, in 5 years or 10 years, I'm gonna have to stop for a certain period of time. Just like, go for it, all in, pretend that is not an obstacle. It's an obstacle for 3 months after you have your kid and you're not gonna remember it anyway. But other than that, like, it's fine, you can do it. Don't be scared of it, because I was, and I procrastinated for a couple of years before I had my baby because of that.
Okay, final question. I know we're gonna wrap up. What is the one thing that you most want to tell this group of 18 to 22-year-olds about how you own who you are?
I'm very unapologetic. I don't care if I piss people off for the sake of saving lives or I have a quote from Madonna that I pulled out from like Teen Magazine when I was 13, and it said, I know what I want, I get what I want, and if that makes me a bitch, I don't care. And I sort of feel that way. And if it's in the sake of doing something better, then do it. I was talking earlier about I am the queen of a cold email. Every executive's email is available online. And I cold email people all of the time. And it's raised millions of dollars for the organization. It's got a tremendous amount of attention for the organization. So don't be scared. No one's going to know if they don't, respond back. And if you don't get that job, no one's going to know and no one's going to remember or really care, frankly. That was another really important lesson my mom gave me, which was like, no one really cares that much about what you're doing. And so even if you fall on your face, like, they're still going to go have a drink with you next week. It's fine. So don't think people are watching that closely, because they're not. So in that regard, take a big, big risk.
Thank you so much, Jenna, for your time.
Day. Maybe that'll kinda make the pain go away. Trying to forgive you for abandoning me. Praying, but I think I'm still an angel away. Angel away, yeah, strange in a way. Maybe that is why I chase strangers away. They got their guns out aiming at me, but I become Neo when they aiming at me. Me against them, me against enemies, me against friends. Somehow they both seem to become one. A sea full of sharks and they all smell blood. They start coming and I start rising. Must be surprising, I'm just amazing. I win, thrive, soar, higher, 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 more fire. To fight, to conquer.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Helen Brosnan, Dr. Marsha Chatelain, Aminatou Sow, and Ann Friedman of Call Your Girlfriend.
Good intro. Good intro. My girl, Drew. Hello, everyone. So we are absolutely thrilled that this is how we are closing out our day, because it is the dream team. If I do say so myself. And this is our final conversation of the day, and we couldn't be happier to have the three of them grace our stage. So Ann and Amina here are our hosts of Call Your Girlfriend, the podcast, which I'm just going to take a note to say is my favorite podcast of all time and has gotten me through many very slow runs and really slow and short runs. And it is wonderful, and I know there's a lot of fans out here in the audience, which is great. And this conversation will be moderated by the incredible Dr. Chatelain. Dr. Chatelain, in addition to being the best professor at Georgetown, hands down, is the author of the new book, Southside Girls, which recasts Chicago's Great Migration through the lens of Black women. They actually recently had Dr. Chatelain on the podcast, but today the tables are turned. Dr. Chatelain is joined by Call Your Girlfriend co-hosts Ann Friedman and Aminato So. Ann is a freelance journalist who writes about gender, media, technology, and culture. She also writes a weekly column for New York Magazine. And Aminato is the co-founder of Tech Lady Mafia and currently leads all politics and social impact marketing for Google's brand team. So it's a really dope group, and we're happy and thrilled to have them up here and close out the day. Thanks, guys.
Welcome to Georgetown, ladies, and welcome to Own It.
Thanks. Hi.
They are so excited, I can't.
I mean, they're probably excited because of you. You're the most popular person
That's so
on
not
this
true.
campus.
Local celebrity.
If this is about owning it, let's just be honest. So today's panel is about modern womanhood, and I think that's such an interesting concept because it sounds like a tampon. But other than that, what are the ways that you feel like you are living kind of consistently with this idea of being a modern woman?
Oh man, hard questions right out the gate. I don't know. There's not a better time to be a lady than today. Unfortunately, like we can't go in the time machine. It's the further back you go for women or people of color, it's always awful.
Terrible.
So
right. Only forward.
Yeah, if anything, I'm just like, I wish I was like 20 years younger because it only gets funner and better. But I don't know, I think that we're women who we really own our voices. We are, like we're with the times, and we really embrace this idea of lifting other women with us and giving them a platform as well. So that's exciting for us.
And on the podcast, sometimes you talk about growing up in Iowa. Yay for the Midwest. And we actually both share an alma mater in common, the University of Missouri. Go Tigers. And what are some ways that you see the way that you're living your life very different than the women you grew up around?
Oh my God, I'm living my life so different than all of my female predecessors, definitely. I don't know, I think that part of it is about what Amina was sort of saying in terms of choices and having being privileged to be born at a time when I have many more of them. But also, I think that there is just a values difference sometimes, I think that, I think about my mom who is totally, was a full-time caregiver. I'm the oldest of three, and she quit her job as soon as she got pregnant with me and was like, cool, now on to this phase, and this idea of trying to reconcile a lot of the things that I think #modern women try to reconcile have not been questions for her.
Yeah.
And so, it's part of it's a value system. I know people who are my age who have a lot more in common with them because they want to live more like my mom or grandmother did. But yeah, for me, it's definitely been something about seeking out other role models, while at the same time, the older I get, trying to really find the things and appreciate the things that the women in my family have embodied or exemplified for me.
So much of your podcast, the appeal of it is modeling a kind of friendship after college that I think for a lot of these young women make them so hopeful about the relationships that they can have moving forward. If you were to kind of give 2 or 3 tips on remaining grounded in your friendships after college, what are some pieces of advice you would give these women?
Man, the first thing I always say is, and I said this during office hours, when you think about someone, just get in touch with them in that moment. I think that that's so important because a lot of times you're always thinking I want to go to the post office, I want to send them a care package. It's all these lofty, how do I make a big splash, as opposed to the really dumb, I'm watching Bravo, and I think you would like...
Or I saw Stanley Tucci on the cover of this weird magazine and sent you a photo of it.
Yeah, it's like friendship is really, it's a very low stakes if you think about it. And I think that just thinking about special moments like that is important. And also just making your peace with the fact that your friendship will probably change, and that's not... it's not a reflection on the kind of person that either of you are. It's logistics will get harder, distance gets harder, and if you're both open to the fact that it's a little harder to stay in touch, I think that helps also.
I've had the reverse happen too, where I lived in a house with 3 other women my sophomore year of college, and it did not end well. There were couches left behind and people very bitter about having to deal with other people's junk, and I don't know. It was a bad sort of situation, and I thought that I would not be friends with those women again, and I'm very close to them now, and in a way that I wasn't in my early 20s. And sometimes, if you kind of like the internet is nice this way, keep like a low tether to people, they come back in your life in unexpected ways. And so I think, trying to understand that the arc of friendship is longer than like your romantic relationships, like sometimes longer than like family even, that's the best way to think about it.
And in terms of taking care of your friendship, you give us a window into this really intimate relationship. What is it like, these deeply, deeply intimate relationships? Does that sound creepy?
Kind of.
The way I said it, sorry.
It's very romantic.
This intense and burning relationship. And so you let us into that, right? And so what is it like that your friendship is also this creative project, this political project that you're doing, this business? How does that impact your relationship?
Well, one thing, I was watching the activism panel just today, and there was a lot of talk about like working with purpose or like working towards something. And I think what's interesting is like obviously like we like love and enjoy each other's company and like are supportive of each other, but they're like the working on the podcast has imbued it with this sense of purpose, I guess, or like with a bigger thing, which is not always easy, but I think maybe you can tell me if you disagree. but I think has made our friendship more powerful in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think too, this idea of the intimacy is so interesting to me. Like whenever people are like, oh my God, like we're getting a glimpse into your friendship. But I think the reason that people relate to it so much is because they have those exact same friendships. And they have that level of intimacy with somebody else, and it's more this idea of like, oh, I didn't know that other people also had this with like
secrets out.
Exactly. It's like secrets out. Women make a great friends.
And so much of that is about being personal and open. How does it feel to own so many personal things about yourselves with an audience?
I think that maybe like the greatest lie about our show is that we are really personal. I think that, we're people who are obviously like we've been on the internet for a minute now. So there are a lot of things that you can infer about us. But I think that in terms of like being private people, we're actually very private. From listening to our show, you don't know a lot about our other relationships or, like what kind of days we're having or whatever. Like that's very, that's its own thing. But I think that, just this idea of like bringing your full self every day to the table is maybe what's also so relatable about it, right? Where you can talk about the high and the low, and there are serious things, and then there are things that are not so serious. And people still get to enjoy and participate.
Right. It's true. I never really feel. I think there have been one or two times when Gina, who's our producer and editor, has emailed us and said, like, "You sure you want me to leave this little detail in?" Like I said something about my mom once, and she was like, "Do you want to keep that in?" It wasn't like bad or anything, but personal. And so like I think that like for people, like for her, I think she can hear, oh, this is actually like a pretty personal detail, as opposed to just like. Like we don't think periods are very personal, or like things that are maybe like historically like seen as like really intimate details. We're just like lots of women do it. Like it's not a big deal. So I think that's part of it too. Is like maybe our definition of like what is truly like personal is different than maybe like what mainstream media or something says.
And in terms of being in the media space, we all heard the interview with Huma Abedin. Yes. That was so cool. Yes, let's like give her a round of applause for that. You were clearly incredibly influential with a demographic. And in terms of thinking about your platform, helping people understand young women, what are some of the ways that you are in that translation process? Because Huma's not talking to anyone else but you two. For a reason.
Well, that's maybe because other people have been too stupid to put in interview requests. I don't know. Like,
it's like nobody's asking her. You should, like, more people should ask to interview her. She's great.
I don't actually know, but
you're based on nothing.
Based on nothing, I assume that we are the only request she's gotten, like, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that that's also part of it, right? Is that our audience is predominantly like us. We just ran a survey. And the numbers were staggering. It's like, oh, we listen to our podcast.
Yeah. Great. I mean, it was like, these women do not get paid enough. And I was like, I know.
It's like, oh, wow, overeducated and underpaid.
Yep.
Like, way to go. 4% men, of course.
Yep.
So, I think that that's something that when we set out to do the show was not, we did not see 2 years down the road being, podcast interview moguls, and it's worked out for the best. But, I think that's some of the, working with purpose and the value shares that we have is that it's important to us to give a platform to issues that we think are underrepresented or undersold. And also the mainstream media never talks to young women like they matter. And the truth is that we are the most important voting bloc. Single women put Obama in the White House in a very tangible.
We put Michelle in the White House. But
put Michelle in the White House.
Was that your first goal, and then you got the president?
It's keep Michelle in the White House.
You're I guess I have to check this box to get Michelle there. Okay,
Yeah. So for us, it's just recognizing that young women are important, and our voice is important, and our ideas are important, and how do we elevate that?
And I also think that there's a sense of, I always hate it when people ask us oh, what's your guilty pleasure? It's
Ew,
I hate that too.
It's shame.
Yeah,
Shame.
because, and I think one thing is we are pretty shameless in the best way about talking about stuff that we don't think should be shameful. So, body stuff and pop culture and things that I think the dominant dude-heavy culture says doesn't matter very much, in large part because women do care about it.
You're what's your guilty pleasure? Reading the Wall Street Journal?
Yeah, my guilty pleasure is the Financial Times.
Caring so much about the world. I hate that.
Charlie Rose. Whatever. I do think that we sort of flip in many ways that narrative. And again, it's because we just disagree with how other outlets make choices, and so we make different ones. It's not politically we're going to sit here and actively hate on the Wall Street Journal. We're just going to talk about stuff we care about as important, because it is.
So much about this summit and so much of its founding is about the future. And so from your vantage point, what do you think the future of feminism is? Or who's proclaiming it? No pressure on any of these questions.
Big question. I don't know, and I'm excited to live in a time in history that I get to see it pan out. Also, I think that the thing about feminism that is awesome is that it's a political movement with its own ups and downs and this really strong history, but it's like that Martin Luther King quote. That just bends towards justice, right? And it's only getting fair.
Women are pushing it actively towards justice. It's not just bending.
But it's for women, it's things are only going to get better because we're getting louder, and we're not saying yes to the same things that we used to, and we expect more, and there's just so many more of us now, and and we have more power and more money, and so I imagine that it can only get better from here.
Well, and one thing I see as a challenge or sort of a point of transition is when I think about this moment, I think that there's definitely a large group of feminists who would sort of consider themselves actively in a movement or actively working in a way that they view as political. And then I think there's a way bigger group, just all of Beyonce's fan base, lots of people who maybe do not view themselves as sort of actively politically feminist, who are more so than other points in history really sympathetic to feminism as kind of a personal ideology. And what I'm really excited to see is if you think of that active group as one circle, and then sort of personally identified group of feminists as a bigger group, I'm excited to see what can happen if that circle expands, and that if people who personally conceptualize themselves as feminists start to become more politically active. I think I get excited about that.
And it's clear that you two are part of that expansion with the content on your podcast and the conversations you're having with young women. I remember from your live show episode with Rebecca Traister when she was talking about single women and you were talking about your friendship. And so I think to round out the conversation, I'm just curious, Anne, what does Amanatu's friendship give to you? And Amanatu, what does Anne's friendship give to you?
The first word that comes to mind is just permission. Permission to be myself and to be great, and also to be vulnerable. I think that all great friendships should give you permission. Sometimes we're really bad about giving it to ourselves, to to actively do what we want to do and to be ourselves, or to like admit that we are really struggling or in pain about something. So I would say that is like the number one thing. Lots of other things like, you know, deep knowledge of pop cultural issues I would not otherwise know about, and really good gifts, and you know, like there's other things too that are like way secondary, tertiary, but permission's number one.
You know, man, you do give really good gifts. That's so, you know, like, not to say that that's like what all good friendships are made of, but when somebody gives you a thing that you didn't know that you needed, and you enjoy, it's beautiful.
Amina gave me a garbage can once. she was like, you need this like really expensive.
The like $80 one?
It was like, it's like one of those like simple human, like expensive human.
So expensive.
Yeah, exactly. It just showed up at my house in a giant box, and she was like, I knew you needed it. I saw your garbage can, and I was like, whoa, like, whoa, like just things I didn't know I needed.
Acts of love.
Yeah. I know, but you know, like Anna's one of the most consistent people in the world, and just having somebody who's so full of integrity and just truth all the time, and she's so smart and generous with her friends, and watching the way that she navigates her other friendships makes me feel so secure in that, like, oh, I made the right choice to be a friend with this person.
Oh my gosh, it's so kind. I don't even know how much time I have left. This is so sweet. What's my time signal? Oh gosh, there's 1 minute.
1 minute.
And
1
then,
minute. What are we doing in this 1 minute?
What should we do in this last minute?
We can sing. We can dance.
We can't. We can't do either of those things.
No.
We can.
Lightning round.
Lightning round. What makes you most hopeful?
Oof. I don't know. Office hours was really fun today. It was cool to just meet some.
Aren't they great?
It was just cool to meet young women who are, I don't know, I feel who are more confident than I was when I was their age, and knowing that there's so many of them, and even the idea of Own It is cool. So I don't know. I'm like, shout out young ladies, always.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. Totally.
Also, maybe we'll have a woman president this time next year. I'm also excited about that. Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, all of this. I think that, when we get incredible like responses to the podcast, but I really think that in general, just really realizing that like women, broadly speaking, care about the stuff we care about and making change in general. Like, I know that's like should be a no-brainer. Like, I should have known that before, but just having that constantly reaffirmed and is the best.
Well, on behalf of Own It 2016 and Georgetown University, thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Archa.
This was so fun.
Thank you.
Question, tell me what you think about me. I buy my own diamonds and I buy my own rings. Only ring your celly when I'm feeling lonely. When it's all over, please get up and leave. Question, tell me how you feel about this. Try to control me, boy, you get dismissed. Pay my own condo and I pay my own bills. Always 50-50 in relationships. The shoes on my feet, I buy. The clothes I'm wearing, I buy. The rock I'm rocking, I buy. 'Cause I depend on me. If I want it, the watch I'm wearing, I buy. The house I live in.
Skips the end. Wow, the feeling in this room has been absolutely electrifying. I think that's what happens when you assemble a room full of ambitious, driven, and supportive women and men. So I owe you, the attendees, a huge thank you for being such an incredible audience today. Before we end our day, our other incredible Own It co-founder, Kendall Stiesmeyer, is here with a little surprise for Helen.
Hi guys, sorry. This is really just to be public embarrassing to Helen and do what she did to me last year. So we just wanted to extend our thanks to you, Helen, for being such an amazing teammate, a partner in crime, a friend, a confidant. If you don't know Helen, to know her is to love her, and the whole Own It team feels that way. All 3 years of Own It teams and everyone that she's worked with and touched. Helen and I started with this really crazy small idea, and it turned into something that was so much, so much beyond what we had ever imagined or expected. And it wouldn't have happened if it weren't for her incredible persistence and her tenacity and will to get things done and to kick ass every day. She works so hard on this, and she gives her blood, sweat, and tears truly to this passion, which is creating opportunities for young women. So please, Helen, come up on stage so we can honor you.
Thank you so much. Sorry. It's an honor, and this has been the best experience of my whole 4 years here, without a doubt. So I'm gonna miss you guys a lot, and I really appreciate everyone coming out today. Thank you. Okay, now for the way more fun part than watching whatever that was. I'm so sorry. That's gross. No one likes that. Okay. Russell, music, please. Okay, we are going to thank our incredible team with a little tradition here. We're gonna run through the planning team of Own It, who has made this entire day possible with the three of us. Okay, starting with Molly Zielinski.
Why do you lock yourself up in these chains?
Abby Stewart. Sarah Clemens.
Don't ever let anyone step all over you.
Sienna Mori.
Open your heart and your mind.
Cassie Science.
Is it really fair to feel
Misty
this
Lee.
way inside?
Amelia DePaulo.
Somebody's gonna make you wanna turn around and say goodbye.
Kate Ballinger.
Until then, baby, are you gonna let him hold you down?
Melina Shao.
Don't you know, things can change. Things
Carly
are going
Ganson.
away. Hold on, don't wait
Paige Taylor.
Hold on,
Caroline Moley.
Gianna Pisano.
hold on for one more day.
Nicole Heitzbringer. Lillian Tay.
Abigail Glasgow.
Alexis Ona-Efele. Christine Starkey.
Emily Brown.
Jenna Galper. Sarah Pita. Maya Davenport. Amanda Shepard.
Virginia Hanson.
And last but not least, Yvonne Ali.